Trump administration is actually doing a bunch of good things. And this is the thing that's killing me about this trade war that is, again, being poorly run out. Get to the off-ramp. The off-ramp should be zero tariffs. Get to that off-ramp. If President Trump uses leverage to get there, great. He did it. He did the thing. Awesome. Get there, because there's too much other important stuff that is happening. So, for example, the Trump administration is absolutely kneecapping higher education. The Trump administration escalated its campaign against American universities, according to the Wall Street Journal, by preparing to pull $510 million in federal grants from Brown University, while also laying out demands Harvard must meet to avoid losing billions in government dollars. The administration is freezing National Institutes of Health grants to Brown, while it investigates the Ivy League schools' handling of anti-Semitism and DEI. Additionally, new developments emerged regarding Harvard after the government opened a review of nearly $9 billion in federal grants and contracts earlier this week. This is great. This is necessary. This should be done. The administration is also looking into wastes of money, like, for example, an initiative called the U.S. Global Change Research Program. Brent Schur reports this exclusively for Daily Wire. More than 3 decades ago in 1990, Congress mandated an initiative called the U.S. Global Change Research Program. Now it spends billions of dollars a year empowering liberal climate radicals to spread climate change doom. The government group says its role is to provide the scientific foundation to support informed decision-making across the U.S. on climate change. What that has amounted to is the production of 5 national climate assessment reports, the crown jewel of climate research. The report appears to be just about the only thing that the group actually does. While the U.S. Global Change Research Program states on its website it has a budget of nearly $5 billion in 2025, it only lists 2 full-time employees. Mostly, the National Climate Assessment outsources its work to a group called the ICF, a massive government contractor that has an active contract to work on the report. The Daily Wire identified at least one active contract from NASA for ICF to support the U.S. Global Change Research Program. It's set to be paid millions of dollars during the Trump administration to, quote, assist the nation and the world to understand, assess, predict, and respond to human-induced and natural processes of global change. That contract was first announced in June 2021 and described as a $34 million 5-year contract to help with national climate assessments. So basically, it is a giant sop to a left-leaning organization. And now, Russ Vought, who runs the powerful Office of Management and Budget, is taking a look at this sort of stuff, which we should be doing. And this is the sort of stuff that has to be done. Doge is doing this sort of stuff. I was on the All In podcast last week, and one of the former members of the All In kind of team, Antonio, he is part of Doge. He's going through everything at Social Security, and they're coming up with giant lists of people who have been imported to the United States and given Social Security cards. And the vast uptick in the people who are being given those Social Security cards cannot be explained by simple legal immigration. It is because Joe Biden was importing people across the border. Doge is doing really important work. If that's getting obscured by a tariff war, the rationale for which is utterly unclear and the end point of which is utterly unclear, and all of that is resulting in significant losses across the economy, this is not what the Trump administration should be focused on. There are things that are really important to do. And if this is really important, then let's hear it. Let's explain. What is the end goal? What does the future America look like at the end of the pain that President Trump is pitching here? We'll get to more on this in a moment. First, the internet of the 90s promised a democratic virtual world where individuals, not governments or corporations, held power. Today, that vision seems distant. Big tech dominates our digital lives, with companies not just serving ads, but potentially influencing our political choices through controlled content delivery. The original internet promised personal freedom and control over your information journey. There's a way to reclaim that control and freedom: ExpressVPN. When you browse the internet, your service provider tracks everything you do, building a profile that data brokers sell to advertisers and government agencies. This constant surveillance means we're being watched and manipulated online. With ExpressVPN, my entire online traffic flows through secure encrypted servers, preventing even my internet provider from monitoring my activities. I can browse freely without surveillance. I use ExpressVPN all the time. Whenever I'm on the road, that means somebody theoretically could be looking in on my data. I don't want that, so ExpressVPN is the thing I use to protect myself. ExpressVPN also masks your IP address, the digital identifier companies use to track and manipulate your online experience. It's simple to use, just one click. ExpressVPN works seamlessly across all your devices. Find out how you can get 4 months free by scanning the QR code on screen, clicking the link in the description box below, or by going to expressvpn.com/Ben Shapiro Show. That's expressvpn.com/Ben Shapiro Show. Meanwhile, economic policy has bleed over into the real world. It turns out that trade policy does have intersection with foreign policy, more generally military policy as well. Obviously, China, for example, growing its influence, has some significant military ramifications. It is also true in Ukraine. So that giant corkboard that President Trump held up, the poster board, it did not have Russia listed on it. It listed dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of countries. It did not list Russia. Kevin Hassett tried to explain why Russia was not actually listed.
Obviously, an ongoing negotiation with Russia and Ukraine, and I think the president made the decision not to conflate the two issues. It doesn't mean that Russia, the fullest of time, is going to be treated wildly different than every other country.
Well, it is pretty obvious at this point that all of the niceties toward Russia are bearing very little fruit with regard to Russia actually caving and changing its position. Over the weekend, according to the U.S. Sun, NATO had to scramble fighter jets as Vladimir Putin unleashed a barrage of nuclear-capable bombers and ballistic missiles on Ukraine. Russia struck central Kyiv and other locations in brutal new strikes involving ballistics, cruise missiles, kamikaze drones, and aerial bombs. That came one day after a Russian missile strike on Vladimir Zelensky's hometown of Kryvyi Rih, killing at least 19 people, including 9 children. The latest attack involved at least 4 Tu-95 MS strategic bombers, with Putin's forces unleashing deadly Kh-101 missiles from over the Caspian Sea. So again, this is all in the middle of Zelensky saying that he is perfectly willing to sign a ceasefire like today. And Russia continues to push forward. And meanwhile, the administration continues to say, we're not going to tariff you. Everybody else on earth gets tariffed, not you. Okay, at some point, reality has to set in, and Vladimir Putin has to be brought to the table. If the idea is push Zelensky to get to the table, I'm all for it. I've been calling for it since 2022. Okay, I've been doing this for 3 years, calling for this. But Zelensky's now at the table. That ain't the problem anymore. Putin is not at the table. That is very clear. And again, more niceties on trade are not fixing the problem, pretty obviously. All right, let's jump into the mailbag. Tyler says, hey, Ben, I will soon become a CPA. I'm trying to decide what firm to work for. I could work for a big prestigious firm and work some insane hours, or I could work at a slightly smaller firm and have more reasonable hours and less prestige. I'm getting married soon, want to be a great husband. I'm trying to balance my career advancement with family life. I've heard you talk about working at a big law firm. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. So I hated working at a big law firm, but that wasn't because of the hours. I worked really long hours right after that at the next job that I went to. It's really about your career trajectory. What gets you where you need to go, particularly early on in your life before you have kids. Once you have kids, you got to take time off to be with the kids. You got to make sure that your work-life balance is really good. The truth is my wife and I basically bowled through most of the like super duper long hour hard work kind of stuff earlier in our marriage. Right now, obviously I work a lot of hours. They're kind of weird hours because I'm trying to work around when my kids are awake. But earlier on in our marriage, I could sit next to her on the couch and we could both work. And it was fine. We're both adults. Now, obviously, we can't do that when we have 4 kids climbing all over us. Steven says, hey, Ben, I saw a clip the other day of a protest in Gaza against Hamas. Is there a growing movement against Hamas, or is this on the propaganda side of things? My suspicion is that it's propaganda. Because, again, these people are not protesting Hamas for Hamas's evil leadership. None of them have been protesting for Hamas to release the hostages, I noticed. I still have yet to see a single Palestinian protester in the street calling on Hamas to release the hostages they currently hold in Gaza. So what it seems to me is these are set-up protests designed to suggest that there is, in fact, a moderate Palestinian faction that can be worked with in Gaza or the West Bank. And that is factually untrue. It just isn't. Well, that's all for now, folks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts down below. Be sure to check out all of the other great content on my channel. I'll see you here next time.